Hello, my name is Connor, and today I'm going to be speaking about what the purpose of interviews are with athletes, like sport analysis is, etc., etc. Okay, so the purpose of a post-interview with an athlete is after the match, people like to interview athletes so that they can get the ins and outs of the match through an athlete's perspective. So, for example, if they lost the ball at any given time and it led to someone scoring against them, they could speak about that and then break down what exactly happened, or on the other hand, someone on their team is doing well, so they give them praise for it. On the other hand, you have issues within the sport, so people like to hear the ins and outs of obviously what's seen on TV in the live matches, but they also like to understand what's good and bad about the sport behind what we see. So, for example, if they believe someone is trying to cheat in some way, they will openly say it. When it comes to discussing private life, as I said before, people like to enjoy hearing everything about the sport that they love. Definitely, we like to know the ins and outs of an athlete's life. Discussing the private life helps us to understand what people who have an athlete's lifestyle do outside of training. So they like to know, basically, as I said, the ins and outs and want to know everything about that athlete. The different types of interviews that you can do for an athlete are through, say, radio, TV, internet, and social media. There are quite a few different types of ways you can interview an athlete. They may include going face to face with the media after a match. They might also talk on the radio to sports stations, such as TalkSport, to discuss the recent upcoming match. Athletes also like to post on social media about how the match went, whether or not they feel like they performed to their full potential, or if they feel like they kind of failed and let their team down a little bit. But they update their lives on a daily basis using Facebook or Twitter. They may also do pre-recorded interviews. These interviews with media would need an intimate response, and it's more honest because they're not under as much pressure when it comes down to it. So they're not in front of a live audience having to speak and having to describe everything that went on. And it just helps them relax a little bit and tell the absolute truth and get everything that the interviewer really just wants to hear out of them. Now, in this part, we're going to be talking about like how they should be dealing with the interviews and stuff. So, for example, with the verbal communication, how their language is, their tone, pace, whether or not they can answer the open and closed questions that are given to them. So there are two types of common communication: verbal and non-verbal. In an interview, you need to be able to use both of them very effectively and efficiently. When people are being interviewed, they need to be careful with their language, especially athletes. As more people tend to watch an athlete, so they like to know everything that's going on and they still like to hear about it. When people are being interviewed, oh God, I'm sorry, repeat that same bit. Their tone needs to always be welcoming. An athlete needs to make sure that they say the right thing, and if they don't agree with what the media says, they don't get angry about it. Because as I said, their tone always needs to be calm. Otherwise, they can make a situation worse than it already is. They might try to move away or avoid a topic by using another one, also that they don't get the confrontation and so they can stay calm and don't get angry. They can't either have a pace either, as it shows that they are not comfortable with the topic, which could lead to people to believe that they are lying even if they're not. This is a simple thing to do, and it takes a little bit of practice, but it is something that all sportsmen and women should be able to do, as it helps everything move smoother and works out better for the athlete. Open and closed questions are used in every single interview. Closed-ended questions are questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no, while open-ended questions um, are those who require more thought and more than just a simple one-word answer, leading to people possibly ending up with a full conversation. If you're an athlete and you're able to answer all of these questions given to you, whether it is an open or a closed question, it will make the interview more successful and means that they can get how they truly feel about the points of the sport across and how the sport has become in their eyes. Non-verbally, which is basically eye contact, gestures, active listening, and appearance. When you're in an interview, you always need to have eye contact, without a doubt. You can't be looking around the room, but because if you are looking around the room, then it comes across that you're not interested in the subject anymore, and you just don't really care. It's the same with having good body posture and language, such as if you're leaning forward, this shows that you are interested there and you want to be there and speak about this subject. Furthermore, on that, they also use gestures like having their hands open, which is more inviting. It gives off a better look and it shows that they're interested and want to be involved in the conversation. They move their hands about to to show different things and just helps bring the conversation together. Comparing the difference between groups in the media, comparing, sorry, comparing the difference between communicating with different types of media. There we go, finally got there in the end. On a radio, appearance is not as important as it would be as face to face, as people can't see your body language. However, they obviously need to always be making sure that they know what they're saying and can't be rude because people are obviously watching that. An interview with a sponsor. Now, this is more formal and you need to have more specialist vocabulary, you need to be dressed smart, and you need to be able to ask the open and closed questions just like that. Um, and then there's also like an interview with a manager, which can be less formal, and you can just like relax a little bit because it's with your manager, and you can speak to each other on a level where it's almost like a almost like a friendship level with one hierarchy that's only ever so slight. Um, but to communicate with the media effectively, they need to be able to answer the questions professionally. Um, but they could also make it as a bit of a joke just to get the media on their side and to have a laugh about a situation. When it's talking to like the fans and the public and stuff, it needs to be calmed down as well. It's like being with the media. You need to be able to have a laugh with them and not get serious or rowdy and angry with them. Because if anything goes wrong, it's reflected obviously on you, and when it's affected on you, it's on the club as well. So it has more of an effect than just you and this one person as well, which makes it very difficult to be able to speak properly. And it does obviously build natural worry, but as I said before, it's something that every athlete will need to go through, and every athlete can do quite easily. Oh my God, no. As an athlete, people tend to be able to, like, they tend to get sponsorships, and on top of that, which means that they will obviously be interviewed by all the sponsors, which can be a lot of stress because it's a very big deal that could lead to a lot of money or loss of a lot of money because obviously they want to give the interviewers a good impression so they get that sponsorship, which leads to more money, and then it also brings the club into like a higher light in a sense, which works out not only, as I said, as I literally just said, it works out for the customer, for the club, and it also works out for the player. However, going back to the manager, if they wanted to speak to their manager, they'd have to ask open and closed questions or mainly open questions, because they'd need to find out everything about what's going on with the club, how they can perform better, and just what they can do overall to be a better player in and outside of the club. It is important for an athlete to plan, like do a audience rehearsal sort of thing, dressing appropriately, because planning for an interview gives the athlete an opportunity to be prepared with what they might say, and it will allow them to dress accordingly so that they can represent their club well. They could either dress like smartly, either in a suit, but then they could also dress in the club kit, as it could like either way could make them look a bit better, as they're either representing their club or they're representing themselves. So dressing smartly, they'd obviously be representing themselves, making them look good, and obviously dressing up just shows how like well they are doing in a sense. But on the other hand, obviously working with a club, you can dress in the club's uniform and get your club's name either out there, or just like show how dedicated to your club that you really are. But if you plan for an interview, then you can answer every question that is given to you without hesitation. You will know what they're going to ask, and you'll know how to answer them. So if you know how to do all of that, then it can look 10 times better on yourself, as it will lead to the interview going more smoothly. And then, obviously, if you know what you're saying, the media won't be able to twist it, and they won't be able to make you look bad if you know what you're going to say and you know everything that needs to be said and what will make your club look good or look bad. When you're an athlete, you need to be able to have a backup career, because everybody has a career that they aspire to. However, over 50% of the time, it can be hard for people to achieve that career. So having a fallback, having something to fall back on, such as coaching, is amazing, because it means that you can fall back on something if your main goal does not go to plan. For an athlete, it is important that they have a plan what they are aiming for, what they have a plan for what they are aiming for, because when you try to become a professional athlete, there is so much competition. There is so much competition that it can become overwhelming and can cause a lot of pressure and stress on that person in particular. They also need to know how they're going to achieve that particular goal, as it can help them during their career. This goal, this goal itself will help them push and improve, especially if they know what they're doing. Well, as most athletes, if their contract is banned or they're dropped from a team or something, um, a, they normally can go into advertising, or they could join another team if they have that possibility. However, for some, it's not as simple as that, so they could go into something like sports coaching, which would be a lot better for them. But if they can get into branding and get a lot of publicity, then it can help them out a lot as well. So in this next section, it's all about SWOT analysis of my chosen performer, who was Shannon. But what SWOT analysis is, it's a study undertaken by people to identify their strengths, weaknesses, as well as external opportunities and threats. So what SWOT is, it is essentially the process of evaluating the present condition or situation of an athlete in terms of his or her skill. It is important for all athletes to make use of their strengths and improve their weaknesses, recognize the opportunities that they have when they arise, and also eliminate their threats. Performed on a regular basis, the SWOT analysis is an excellent um, basis for good decision making. Doing this helps towards setting goals on how to improve themselves and where they need to improve. E.g., if someone wanted to become a pro footballer, however, their tackling was too weak, they would carry on training their strengths, such as passing, but begin training harder on tackling to get that high level, to get it to a high enough level to play pro. So, Shannon Quinn's short, medium, and long-term goals. Um, So overall, Shannon is an amazing player when it comes down to football. She's great when it comes to shooting, passing, tackling, and even positioning. However, she needs to improve her dribbling with the ball, and she also needs to be a bit more committed when it comes to trying to get the ball, as she can sometimes give up quite quickly when the other team tries to get the ball. So, for example, if someone's running towards the ball who's bigger than her, she will sometimes run almost like split off in another direction so that she doesn't get hurt. Um, Shannon is a midfielder and she will use the SWOT analysis to look at how she is doing in the sport quite a lot. But what I would say is for her to achieve her goal, short term, what she could do is she'd watch over tutorials on how to control the ball and how to set up and train properly. This can also help her find out many different ways to train dribble correctly with proper control, i.e., running in and out of cones with the ball without kicking it further or hitting any of the cones, and then to progress it, making them shorter. But then her medium term goal would be she could train with a couple of her friends, set up different methods of controlling with the ball with pressure on her, obviously, is to just to make it more challenging. She could have a certain condition to follow. For example, getting past two of her friends on the to the other half of the pitch within 30 seconds without losing the ball at any given time. This is medium term because she can turn to her friends whenever it's needed. However, they may not always be there to help her out, i.e., if they've got something going on or family, etc., etc. Long term, though, she can go into more games with her team. So this would be long term because she gain more experience if she puts herself into a real life situation. So if she joined, say, the college team, doing this can improve her skills drastically because she can she can have more pressure on her, making it harder for her. However, the difficulty will allow her to make improvements and can help her achieve her goal. So what I'd say her SWOT analysis is. So obviously it's the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So what I'd say, as I said before, her strengths lie in her shooting, passing, tackling, and positioning, which are all extremely important for football, as you guys probably know. Um, Passing can allow for a counter attack, or it can help gain the advantage when trying to attack. Her shooting is amazing. Despite her being a midfielder, she can obviously get up to the field and take a powerful shot. This helps her team gain the advantage, as they would not expect a powerful shot coming from someone who's in midfield. Good tackling and positioning helps a lot, and it's a lot more than most people would think, as it allows the team to gain more time on the ball, which can indefinitely lead to more chances to shoot if they can play their cards right. Like The others can also help lead a counter attack if it can lead to a goal. However, as I said before as well, her weaknesses are her dribbling and commitment to the ball. Dribbling comes into play um, and it is vital that she improves it, otherwise she can go nowhere in football. This is because when she is dribbling with the ball, um she cannot uh, she cannot control how far the ball goes. So when you're able to control the ball, you're able to keep it close to you. However, when she tries to, it goes further out, which makes it very easy for the opposing team to come through and take that ball off of her as quickly as anything. But on the other hand, her other weakness, which is commitment, this is a massive problem as she does not stick to getting the ball if someone bigger is going for it at the same time. This is all psychological and can be improved over time if she puts herself out there and tries to stop that thought process and believe in her own abilities. As a student, she has many different opportunities as she can get into different clubs cheaper with student discounts, and she can also use the facilities at the college to improve her skills. When doing this, she can gain the assistance of dedicated friends, teachers, and sometimes family. Also, at her age, she has the chance to join many different teams as semi-pro. Over time it will allow her to improve her own skills. Now the threats. Her main threat is her own mind. This is because when it comes down to the commitment on the ball, she backs out and just because she's scared of being hurt. When it comes to dribbling, the threat is if she cannot find any way to practice. So anyone to practice with. So, for example, if she can't get the equipment that she needs to practice, that means, it puts a lot of pressure on her, and that, and so if the college can't help her out with that, she doesn't have the equipment at home, then she may be able to find out a different way of doing it, but it is highly unlikely. When it comes to, for God's when it comes to athletes having a backup career, they always need to make sure that they have a backup career because if someone was injured, for instance, um, if it's severe enough, they could end up like never being able to play a sport again. For example, athletes like Cisse, who he was a Liverpool player who broke his leg horribly, but more than once. It was so damaged that he had to retire from football, and that injury became the downfall of his career. However, if an injury like that does occur, people can still be involved in the sport from a different perspective. They can go into sports coaching as they know how to play the sport, considering that they were pro just because of the injury. If they are passionate enough about the sport, they would find a way to stay in the sport. So coaching the next generation should feel rewarding to them, as it as it's helping more and more people get a different career in that sport. But in retirement, when a football player retires, they obviously still have a lot of money left, as being pro gets a stupid amount of money. However, they need to have a backup because they may not be able to keep up with the lifestyle that they used to. That's why when people like David Beckham retired, they carried on their career in, for instance, modeling and even bringing out a fragrance out. He also gets a lot of money from sponsors and advertising. However, at the end of the contract, you, and if you cannot join a team, it could be a little bit more difficult. However, like David Beckham and Cisse, you can have many different opportunities to have another career in sports. As pro players, they can get a lot of money from sponsors as well, different advertising. Along with that, they can become trainers for football and will go semi-pro. And the same goes for semi-pro players as well. As I said before, having a backup plan as an athlete is vital. So or what most athletes would do, is go into athletic training, which may seem easy, but it's really not. There are easy steps to getting it, but it's just gaining them steps to do it. One is earn a degree in athletic training. Then step two is gaining experience. Step three, obtain a certification and license. And then step four is considering a master's degree. Now, step one, this career at least requires a degree in athletic training. This program generally includes coursework of human movement sciences, first aid, emergency care, anatomy, and psychological and injury and illness prevention. Students who participate in hands-on clinical education under the direct supervision of an experienced athletic trainer. Keep in mind that to obtain a certification later, the degree program must be accredited by a commission on of an athletic training educator. To gain experience, although many employers will consider new graduates without provision experience, gaining experience while in school can help students become competitive candidates in the job market. Students can participate in summer internships, which may not be hands-on, but is still training and can be considered as experience. This can help with all of the things that are needed. Like, for instance, they could work with medical staff and get first aid training. Obviously, it won't be as detailed as proper first aid training, but it's still one foot in the door. As I said before, getting certification and license isn't easy, and you need to go through athletic trainers to be able to do it, and you need to go through all the courses and stuff to be able to obviously get through it and be able to further put yourself through the door. I guess that's probably the best way to put it. When it comes to a master's degree, although you don't need it, is extremely helpful for trainers to have it, as it puts you on a level that makes you more noticeable and can help you like further studying the exercise, like sports medicine, etc., etc. A career as an athlete trainer requires a lot of competition, and with a master's degree, it is improves your chances of getting it exponentially, and it just looks so much better when you're trying to get these jobs and stuff. Now, how you would go about getting a job being an athletic trainer or coach, um, 9 times out of 10 is a self-employed, so it is hard to estimate the amount of money that you would earn. However, the best way that you can do it is by joining a club and getting by which will help get your name out, and if you can train on the grounds with your clients and stuff, obviously if you have the permission of the club. But as like you improve, then more people will come, which will help get your name out more and more, and then you'll go higher up in that sort of like work way. So now the barriers that are getting Shannon's way. So there are loads of things that could get in her way. For example, it could be lack of GCSE, poor IT skills, lack of A-level biology, money. But her biggest weakness that is getting in her way is the money. She has all of the different qualifications that are needed, other than the one final big qualification that she needs, and this qualification costs a lot of money, which can be a huge problem. As she is a student, so because of the work that she gets, she doesn't earn quite as much money as possible if she was outside of college, which could be very problematic because If she finally managed to save up for the money while still in college and then paid for it using all of that money, she could, if she say failed the course, then it could lead to a lot of financial problems despite obviously still being in college because she still have no money to fall back on. But if she passed the course, she can make the money back quickly. However, as I said, having a lack of money is a very big problem when it comes down to trying to become a trying to get these courses down and become a sports trainer or an athletic trainer.